you guys. Welcome to the Inner Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Carolina, and I hope you are having a truly beautiful day. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling good. And if you're not feeling so great, hopefully this podcast episode will help you just leave this conversation feeling a little bit better. So on today's episode, I wanted to really talk about the topic of judgment. I feel like in my own inner growth journey, working through self-judgment and also a fear of being judged by other people has been really huge in my own experience. And it's been something that I've had to work through when it comes to my mindset, when it comes to my relationship with myself, and when it comes to my ability to just be bold and make moves and achieve things and just go for things that I want to do. And also just improving my relationship with my mind. And so I'm excited to talk about it. I don't think I've talked about this that much on the podcast, so it should be an interesting topic. And let's just dive right into it. Let's get growing, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so I think judgment is something that a lot of people struggle with. And if you're someone who has struggled with judgment before, you're definitely not alone. And I think even the people who you look up to, who you see on the internet and who you think are just slaying, right? Who just seem to have it all together, those people have probably also struggled with judgment because it's just a human experience, right? Whether you're just being super self-critical and judging yourself, whether you're picking apart your own appearance or just feeling like you're not enough, or just really going down this rabbit hole, this loop of shame and beating yourself up for something you said or something you did or something you didn't do well enough, quote unquote. Or whether you're just in your head worrying about what other people are thinking about you, what other people are talking about, if they're talking about you, if they're, making judgments about your decisions, whether it's any of those things, I am sure if you're listening, you have probably struggled with one of the above. And that's why, right? It's a human thing, as I said. And I have, as I said before too, really struggled with this myself. And so let's just talk about it, right? Let's just have a little conversation about judgment. And the first thing is that judgment sucks, right? And feeling like you are being judged is really triggering. And I feel like that's probably my biggest area of growth, is just realizing that, one, feeling judged is just human, but also I can deal with feeling judged or worrying about being judged in a more positive way, in a more empowering way. And that's, at the end of the day, something I'm doing for my inner growth, for my well-being, for my best self. And I just feel like in many, many ways, I am really judgmental towards myself. I am my biggest critic. I am always pinpointing the ways that I didn't exceed, or that I maybe feel like I failed or flopped or something like that. And I overemphasize that in my mind. My brain just fixates on that mistake. It fixates on that thing that I didn't do well enough. And then I go down this spiral of just constantly thinking about it. And it's not a very positive loop. And so that's something that I have become very aware of, that I tend to do. But the reason I really even realized that I was really self-judgmental was because I always thought other people were judging me. I always would think that someone was looking at me a certain way because they were making a judgment, or people were treating me a certain way because they were judging me. And I really had to get real with myself. I remember I had just started therapy, so this was the beginning of 2020, and I was journaling, and I just realized that actually the reason I thought everyone around me was judging me so harshly was because I was judging myself. And I was feeling embarrassed or insecure about that thing that I was doing, right? And I felt like that was a big aha moment for me, was just realizing that I actually was judging myself so much of the time, and therefore I was just projecting that on other people and believing that they were judging me. But the only reason I thought that was because I was judging myself the whole time. And so that's something I would encourage you to kind of reflect on, right? Think about it. Do you do that too? Do you feel like people are looking at you weird, or if someone looks at you at all, they're judging you, and you just constantly have this inner thought loop of, oh my gosh, like I'm definitely being judged right now. Or sometimes I feel like this would come up for me if I'm in a conversation with someone and they just make a comment. And then I, instead of seeing it as a comment, would see it as a judgment on myself, right? And I feel like judgment is something that is also very tied to black and white thinking, right? It's either right or wrong. You're either good or bad. And if you're not good, then you're automatically bad and someone is going to be judging you for that. But the thing is that life is very, very much not black and white. And that's something I've learned over time. I've just had to realize that life is actually full of shades of gray and there's a lot of nuance. Every decision you've ever made, every decision other people have ever made is very nuanced and comes with a lot of nuance and comes with a lot of grays. And it's intertwined with so many things, right? With your mental health, with your beliefs, with your thoughts, with what's going on in your life, with the things that you're struggling with, the things you're thinking about, like that all informs your choices. And a choice doesn't define you, right? You're this human being and you're constantly learning through your experiences. And whether you make a decision that's maybe not the best decision in the world, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. And therefore, why are you judging yourself, right? Like, why are you wasting so much mental space making these judgments about yourself and feeling like such a bad person? And I really think that a way to alchemize this, a way to kind of break that judgment loop is to realize this, is to learn that life is actually very nuanced and it's made of all these grays. And therefore, you are not static and you're always growing and you're always learning. Right? And therefore, a decision can be actually a lesson. It can be something that you can grow from and learn from. But I think the hardest thing to break from is this worry about other people judging you, right? Because in many ways, doing that is just deflecting this reality that actually you're judging yourself. Like you're just avoiding accepting that you tend to judge yourself, and then you project it onto other people so that it's not something that is as easy for you to deal with. Because if you feel like someone else is judging you, then that makes you feel out of control. That makes you feel like, oh my gosh, that person is judging me. Like, what can I do to prevent that judgment? But in doing that, you're just putting yourself in that victim position and you're just being like, well, there's nothing I can do. That person's already judging me. But instead, if you're like, wait, am I judging myself? Like, am I just being really harsh with myself right now? Then you can change it. You can alchemize that. And your self-judgment is something that you have complete control over. But the truth about judgment too is that people do judge, right? That's something I've had to really learn as well and accept, is that people do judge. And people judge you whether you're doing well, whether you're killing it. And they're also going to judge you if they think that you're not doing so well, or that you're doing kind of poorly, or if you're struggling or whatever. And so if people are going to judge you no matter what, then why would you worry about their judgment, right? It's completely out of your control whether people are going to be talking about you behind your back or judging you or making assumptions or whatever. Like that's completely out of your control. And so focus on what is within your control. And realize that you're not here to live and to do things to please other people, to make other people happy, or to even avoid judgment. Live for yourself. Do things because they make you happy. Stay true to who you are. If you are concerned about what other people are going to think, then just remember that people are going to judge no matter what, and what other people think is not within your control. And so just focus on you. And that is really hard to break away from though, right? Like I'm here saying like, yeah, people are going to judge, but like there's nothing you can do about it. Well, that doesn't mean that just like you hearing that automatically you're going to be like, well, if people are going to judge me no matter what, then I might as well not care about it. Like maybe you can activate that within yourself and automatically break away from this loop. But it's sometimes not as easy, right? You might realize and you might have this awareness like, oh yeah, people most of the times are judging and they're probably going to judge if I do well or not. But there's still this kind of like inner muddiness, inner like ickiness of not liking the feeling of knowing that someone is judging you. Then again, I think it's important to tease apart whether you are doing things because you're trying to avoid judgment or you're doing things because you actually want to do them. And I think the more that we tap into doing things because we actually want to do them and because they make us happy and because they make us feel fulfilled or they're a step that we need to take towards growth or towards a goal that we have, like when we're focused on that and we're just immersed in the moment and immersed in our conviction of that choice, just like our passion for that decision, our confidence in our decision, our confidence in ourselves, like the more we're tapped into that, the more we're able to block out this cloud of fear about what other people are thinking. And when you're trying new things, I think this is when this fear gets the most activated, right? A lot of people, I think, for example, don't become content creators or feel really blocked with making content because they're afraid of people from their high school finding their videos or people that they know in real life seeing them online and thinking that they're silly or they're cringe or they're whatever. And the funny thing is that when I started creating content, in some ways, I guess I didn't worry about that at all. Like I didn't spend a lot of mind space just like wondering what people were thinking or if someone would come across my TikTok because it felt so vast. Like the world of social media just felt so vast that I didn't even think it was gonna come up on the feed of someone I knew. But there was also this side of me that like I didn't want to outwardly go and tell people that I was making TikToks, especially before it was even like a thing, right? And I also remember when I started my first full-time job, this was not a part of myself that I shared at all. Even though I worked within the space of food and marketing, I didn't want the people who I worked with knowing that I was a creator because I didn't want them to judge me or to think less of me or to think that I was less committed to my job at the company because of it. Like I just was so scared of the judgments they would have about it. So I didn't really tell anyone. And not telling people about a big part of myself and my world and what I love honestly was very isolating. And it made me feel like people at work didn't know me for who I really am. They didn't really see this part of myself that is such a big part of my life. And in the job I had after that first corporate job, it was in the content creator space. And so that was obviously something they knew about me. It was something that they really liked about me because it made me a better asset to their team, right? Because I was so familiar with the industry and with the nature of content creation. And I just remember that that made me feel so much more seen and so much more accepted and so much more held. And yeah, maybe they would think that I was focusing on something else because I had, my content creation on the side that I was doing. But there was also a freedom that came with releasing that fear of what are they going to think if they know me for who I really am and if they see the things that I'm passionate about and that I really like. And if they see me posting about it online. I think the fear of judgment too goes very hand in hand with this need to be perfect, right? Because when we want other people to think that we're perfect, ultimately we're just trying to protect ourselves from judgment, because by protecting ourselves from judgment, we're also protecting ourselves from being disliked or not being loved or not being seen as worthy of love or of praise or of recognition, right? We're just trying to protect ourselves from that failure, from that feeling of being imperfect, right? From that feeling of not being the best maybe, or not being always excelling. And so the more that I've worked through my perfectionism and just that side of myself, I feel like I've also been able to work through this feeling of being judged. And I also feel like in many ways, this fear of judgment gets very activated in two settings. One setting is when I'm with the people who are closest to me, right? Sometimes when you're around your parents or your significant other or your siblings or even grandparents, like family, you might feel like they are judging you. And something that I've had to constantly remind myself of is that if there's anyone in the whole wide world that loves me unconditionally, it's my family. And maybe that's not the case for everyone, but I bet that you can think of people who you love and who love you. Those people love you for who you are. And sometimes they might say things that come across a little judgy, but that doesn't mean that they don't love you. And sometimes it's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to not see eye to eye. They might not understand something that you're doing, and therefore it might come across as a judgment, but they still love you. And don't let this feeling of being judged make you forget that. And then another scenario where I worry a lot about being judged is when I'm around a lot of people that I don't really know very well in a social setting. So it's almost like the opposite extreme. And if someone glances at you or is like looking at you, then you think that they're judging you. And maybe they're totally not. They're just looking at you. They're just observing you. I was recently at a 4th of July party, like a watch party for the fireworks at this rooftop. And I was with my younger brother and a lot of his friends from college. We were just kind of like watching the fireworks, and they were just like kind of glancing in my direction. And I literally felt so judged. I was like, oh my God, is there something in my face? Does my hair look weird? Does my hair look frizzy? Am I dancing weird? Like, do I look really out of it? Like, what is going on? And I was just having this deep, dark conversation with myself, and it was not fun. And sometimes you will find yourself in these loops where you're just like so concerned about what other people are thinking about, but that's because you're not being confident in yourself. Like, I wasn't just being like, you know what, F that, like, I don't give a shit, like, I'm out here having fun. Like, I wasn't really having that attitude. And so that's like the biggest alchemy that you can do, is just being like, I don't really care. Like, yeah, if they're looking at me weird, if they're judging me, if they're thinking anything about me, like, who gives a shit? Like, who cares? And sometimes it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to just be like, who cares? Especially if you're type A, or if you want to be seen as put together or smart or cool or badass or whatever it is. Like, it's really hard to just be like, why would I spend my mind space worrying about this shit? Like, I'm better than this. I can do better, right? I can help myself feel better by just releasing this need to control everyone's opinion about me. I guess it's a combination of a lot of different things that has helped me. It's this kind of side of things where I'm just like, I don't have to waste my time constantly worrying about other people judging me. And also, I don't have to control everyone's opinion about me. And then at the same time, really working on developing this stronger sense of self and the confidence that I feel within myself and my ability to just accept myself as I am and accept my imperfections, because the more that I accept myself, the less that I judge myself. And the less that I judge myself, the less I think other people are judging me, because I'm not projecting that onto them. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to say, right? I think the reality of feeling judged is very multifaceted. There's an element to it of thinking that things are black and white, they're good or they're bad. And in thinking that, you judge yourself a lot, because if you don't do things perfectly, or if you don't feel like you're doing things quote unquote well, then you're doing them badly, and then you're judging yourself, and you're going down this morality, right? And this labeling of your actions and of your character and of who you are, and that takes you down this trail of self-judgment. But then also there's the element of worrying about what other people think, and ultimately you have a lot of control over your own self-judgment, and you're able to really work on strengthening your sense of self-acceptance and of peace with who you are, and of loving yourself unconditionally like the people who love you most do. And at the same time, feeling more and more confident in the fact that people can see you for who you are. You can show yourself to the world. You can be authentically yourself. People will still have opinions, and you can't really control exactly what those opinions are going to be. But the more that you release wanting to control those opinions and wanting to know exactly what people think about you, the more peace you're going to find, and the less you're going to fall down this fear of judgment. And also, something else I didn't even touch on is that even though people do judge and people do have opinions, and they might think things about you that you have no idea what they are, because they might not say it to your face, most of the time we're all in our little worlds. Most of the times people are just thinking about themselves, and you don't really, and they're not judging you or thinking about you as much as you think that they are, or as much as it seems like they are. They're probably just thinking about themselves. They're probably in their head thinking about the million things they have to do, the outfit that they're wearing, their own appearance, their own to-dos, and they're doing that just like you are, right? because we're in our own little world, in our own heads, thinking about all the things we have to do and all the things that we didn't do, or how we look like, or something that someone texted you, whatever it is. Like, we're all in these little worlds, and we forget that other people are in their own little worlds too. And so they're probably not thinking about you as much as you think that they are. And there's a study that I remember learning in psychology class that is called the spotlight effect. And that's exactly it, right? It's that we think people are looking at us and perceiving us much more than they actually are. And there was this experiment where there was a big group, maybe it was like a room or some type of event, and someone leaves the room, changes into this really embarrassing t-shirt, goes back into the room, and then afterwards they asked this person, how many people do you think noticed that you changed t-shirts? And this person was like, I don't know, 50% of the room. And then they asked everyone in the room if they did notice that that person changed t-shirts, and they answered, and I think it was like 20% or maybe 10% of the room noticed, or maybe it was just a handful of people. Like, most people had no idea that that happened, yet the person who changed t-shirts thought that he was being perceived and judged, and that people were noticing his outfit the whole freaking time. So that's the whole point of the psychological experiment, is to just help us realize that we're actually not in the spotlight as much as we think we are. And if people do spend their mind space thinking about you or making a judgment, the fraction of time that that takes up is actually pretty small, and usually they'll move on to the next thing. They'll get stimulated by something else and they'll forget it. And so that's something else that has really helped me stop feeling so anxious about judgment and start kind of just accepting the whole reality of life, is that I'm out here, I'm living my life, I'm making my choices, I'm doing my best. Other people are doing that too. And people might have opinions about me. That's not really underneath my control. But what is within my control is how I choose to show up, how I choose to talk to other people, how I choose to talk to myself, how I choose to act, the things I spend my time on, the things I work on, the impact I make on other people, how I make other people feel. Those things are within my control. The energy I surround myself with, the energy I cultivate into my life, that is within my control. And so I should just focus on that, because the more I focus on that, the better version of myself I am, the more confident I'm able to feel myself, the more peace I'm able to find within my heart for who I am, for both my light, my shadow, my good qualities, my imperfections. Just the more wholly I accept myself, the less I judge myself. And then the less I think others are judging me also. So if you're someone who struggles with judgment or who has struggled with these patterns just like me, hopefully this episode makes you feel a little bit less alone, but also leaves you with a few different actionable takeaways to move through and grow from this pattern and to just find more peace in your life. If it did help you, please let me know. I love talking to you guys. You can message me on Instagram at the Carolina Lifestyle or innergrowth.co and tell me what you think, or send it to a friend who has maybe told you in the past that they felt judged or that they struggled with this. Just send it to them if it made you think of them at all, or post it on your story and make sure to tag me. If you're enjoying the podcast, remember to subscribe on YouTube so you can be in the loop of future episodes. Or if you're listening on your phone, remember to hit the bell icon on Spotify and the plus button on Apple Podcasts so you can be notified of any new episodes. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. And if there's any podcast topics that you guys want to see, let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. So thank you so much for being a part of my podcast family. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you remember to water yourself and do one thing for yourself today that just fills your own cup. And I will see you guys next week with an awesome guest episode. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.